So, fun fact, I have talked about this situation on my YouTube channel twice before, and both times those videos were so dislike bombed that it set a personal record here on the channel. But luckily for me, a recent trade publication article that came out about it was so bad that it made people realize that they may have once again been susceptible to a coordinated smear campaign against a young woman in Hollywood. So, let's try this again, shall we? Okay, so if you're watching this video, I'm gonna assume you're relatively caught up with what has been going on up until this point. If you aren't, there are 2 links in the description down below to my other videos on this so that you can get all caught up to what's going on now. But TLDR, Rachel Zegler is a young, up-and-coming Hollywood actress who is currently the star of the live-action remake adaptation of Disney's Snow White, which is currently playing in theaters. The rollout of this film has been a disaster for a variety of reasons, no pun intended, and now that the movie is bombing at the box office, people are looking for answers, even though the answer is likely that general audiences are getting tired of these pointless, soulless live-action remakes, a lesson that nobody will learn once the live-action Lilo and Stitch movie makes $1 billion. For no other reason besides the fact that Stitch is Disney's most marketable character, especially in foreign markets. Anyway, today I want to zero in on this article written by Tatianna Siegel called Inside Disney's Snow White Fiasco: Death Threats, Beefed Up Security, and a Social Media Guru for Rachel Zegler. But before we get there, I want to take a quick sec to tell you guys all about today's seductive sponsor: The Womanizer. The world is ending. Life is very stressful. The least that you can do is give yourself some well-needed self-care. And what better way to do that than with The Womanizer? Specifically, The Womanizer Enhance. Because you deserve the best. The Womanizer is the original inventor of what is known as pleasure air technology, which uses gentle sucking and massaging air vibrations to help you reach the promised land very quickly. Sometimes multiple times in a night. This is a tool that is so powerful that it's the first womanizer product to get to a 100% rate in user testing. It's also a 2-in-1 product, which means it uses that pleasure air technology and vibrations for a totally unique and customizable experience. And it is waterproof and rechargeable, which means it is perfect for the bath or the shower. There are more than 1,000 ways to enjoy the Womanizer Enhance: 10 air levels, 10 vibration levels, and 10 patterns. That's a lot of patterns. And if you're not already convinced, and you're quite frankly appalled by the notion that I would sell sex to you in one of my YouTube videos, guess what? My magically reappearing flannel and I are getting ready to offer you a very special discount. Use my code ENHANCEKayla for 20% off. That is ENHANCEKayla for 20% off, and thank you so much again to The Womanizer for sponsoring today's video. So this article starts in the timeline of August of 2024, highlighting a tweet that Rachel Zegler posted in which she thanked supporters after the first official trailer for Snow White was released. She then followed this tweet up with, "And always remember, free Palestine." Now, it isn't exactly known why she tweeted this at this particular time, but it is worth noting here that her co-star in the film playing the evil queen is an Israeli actress named Gal Gadot, who served in the IDF. If you're unaware, IDF service is mandatory in Israel, the alternative there being jail time, but Gal Gadot is undoubtedly pro-Israel and has expressed pro-Israel sentiments on social media. And I'm mentioning the jail time thing because I'm going to get a million comments telling me that as if I don't know that. Anyway, what we now know from this article is that this singular tweet caused ripples with the folks over at Disney. Apparently, the film's producer, Marc Platt, personally flew to New York City to tell her to delete the tweet, which she did not do, and we'll come back to this in a little bit. Shortly after this moment is mentioned, the author of this article then references the fact that Disney had to pay for extra security for Gal Gadot, framing it as Rachel Zegler's fault, which is ridiculous because Gal Gadot has been critiqued for being a Zionist long before Rachel Zegler ever expressed her views on Palestine. If you go back to social media posts from when Gal Gadot was cast as Wonder Woman, her breakout role, you will see that this has been a long-standing controversy of hers. It's not new. Then, after the election, she posted, "Fuck Donald Trump," which, fair, and Disney, which has been caught in the culture war partially because of their lazy, cowardly live-action remake nonsense, hired a social media guru to take over Zegler's posts leading up to the film. The article then goes on to frame a previous incident involving Rachel Zegler and Disney in 2022 in a way that is rather suspicious. Take a look at what the writer says here. Zegler had already strained nerves at both the studio and Steven Spielberg's Amblin partners when she complained on social media that she wasn't invited to the 2022 Oscars as the star of Best Picture nominee West Side Story, a film distributed by Disney. Sources say that she had just begun production on Snow White in London, and Sean Bailey, then president of Walt Disney Studios Motion Picture Production, declined to cut her loose for the telecast. After Zegler aired her grievances publicly, the Academy provided her with a ticket even though she wasn't nominated. So this is literally not what happened. An Instagram commenter said they were excited to see Zegler at the Oscars after West Side Story was nominated for Best Picture, and she explained in a reply that she would not be present. She did not issue a specific complaint or call anyone out, she did not demand a ticket, but the internet started talking about how lame it was that she wasn't allowed to attend, and then they let her go. And maybe she shouldn't have talked about it, but that was her first major role ever, and maybe she just didn't know what a big deal it would turn out to be to respond to that comment and explain what was going on. The standards for Oscar-related decorum are pretty interesting nowadays, considering that you can apparently go on stage, slap someone, and then accept an Oscar and make a speech like an hour later. Then the article talks a little bit about Rachel Zegler bashing the original Snow White and explaining that the live-action remake would have a bit of a more modern twist, which angered the dumbest content slop morons on the internet. And let's not forget that Gal Gadot also was saying the same thing in interviews around that time.
Just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
So, this movie's currently in theaters. The reviews are out, and the interesting thing is that most of them, the reviews, have been attributing all of the film's good qualities to Rachel Zegler and her performance. Most of the reviews generally have been in the range of mid to bad, but Rachel Zegler has routinely been described as the bright spot in all of this, especially in comparison to Gal Gadot and her less than gripping portrayal of the evil queen. So given that context, why is Rachel Zegler seemingly the one taking the brunt of all of the hate for this supposed failure of the film? I mean, it's so clear that because the movie isn't doing well, they're trying to pin it entirely on Rachel, who has been on the receiving end of misogynistic hate since she was cast in the role, because she's not white, and Snow White is a white character, and her white skin is essential to the plot, and she's supposed to be white. I don't care about this. I've never cared about it. I think it's stupid to care about it. There are so many adaptations, including the original 1937 version of Snow White, where the character is as white as you want her to be. It doesn't affect the plot at all. It never has. If you look at screenshots of her in the movie and go, she's not pale enough for this film to work, we're just not operating on the same plane of reality. I'm sorry. I can't get it. I don't understand it. I never will. Especially because there is so much to critique about her characterization in the film. The hair is terrible. The dress looks really bad. So to see both of those very obvious problems with the way that she's styled in the film and land on, nah, it's just that she's not white enough. I don't know about that. I don't know. All that being said, I have a huge problem with how baity and disingenuous this article is when it's clear that Disney has not given the proper support to any of their lead actresses of color who are on the receiving end of these misogynistic and racist hate campaigns. And I don't feel bad for Disney over their half-hearted attempts at faux progressivism backfiring, because these live-action remakes refuse to engage with any of what made the original material quote-unquote problematic in the first place, so they do these surface-level changes that people freak out over because culture is politics now, and there's a well-funded right-wing mechanism making a shit ton of money off of this faux outrage nonsense, and then they leave these women out to dry with no support. And problematic isn't even the right word in this case, because the original Snow White is of course a gargantuan feat for the animation industry, but it's a very simple movie that was never going to translate well in 2025 without a significant overhaul in some aspects of the plot at the very least. The half-baked criticism from the basement chuds writes itself, and then regular people who just enjoy movies are probably not going to want to see it either, because going to the movies is very expensive. They're probably not going to want to waste money on something that looks, visually bad. And all of these remakes look like they're being filmed like a Coke commercial. Not to mention the fact that Gal Gadot can't act.
And enough champagne to fill the Nile. Kalel, no. Max Lord, you're putting yourself and everyone else in grave danger. I need you to give me the stone.
And speaking of Gal Gadot, I just love how this article disingenuously frames her as the victim of all of this. Take a look at this excerpt here, for example. The Disney-Zegler standoffs underscore the challenge Hollywood studios face as they attempt to rein in stars who court controversy on social media. For her part, Gadot kept her comments on geopolitics limited to offering support for the civilian hostages taken during the October 7th Hamas attack and did not mix that message with the promotion of the film. Okay, so by that logic, if Rachel Zegler did the same sequence of tweets and instead of tweeting "Free Palestine," she said "Justice for the hostages" or "I stand with Israel," would they have categorized that statement as mixing her political views with the film? Because I don't think they would have. And if it wasn't already clear how transparent of an attempt of all of this is to smear Rachel Zegler simply for the Palestine tweet, let's take a look at a recent comment left by Jonah Platt, Marc Platt's son, about the whole situation, shall we? So Jonah Platt is responding to this comment that says, "Your dad flew to NYC to reprimand a young actress. Any words on this? Because that's creepy as hell and uncalled for. People have the right to free speech, no? Shame on your father." And then he replied, "You really want to do this? Yeah, my dad, the producer of an enormous piece of Disney IP with hundreds of millions of dollars on the line, had to leave his family to fly across the country to reprimand his 20-year-old employee for dragging her personal politics into the middle of promoting the movie for which she signed a multi-million-dollar contract to get paid and do publicity for. This is called adult responsibility and accountability, and her actions clearly hurt the film's box office. Free speech does not mean you're allowed to say whatever you want in your private employment without repercussions. Tens of thousands of people worked on that film, and she hijacked the conversation for her own immature desires at the risk of all of the colleagues and crew and blue-collar workers who depend on that movie to be successful. Narcissism is not something to be coddled or encouraged." I just think that if your family had anything to do with the abomination that is the Dear Evan Hansen movie, you should maybe sit this one out forever, but that's just me. That's just me. So my issue here with all of this, regardless of how you feel about Israel and Palestine, whatever your feelings are on it, I guess, is that unequivocally, Israel has the support of the US government, which is the most powerful institution that they could possibly be supported by. Not only that, but because of the way that this conflict has played out, a lot of celebrities have not spoken up about Gaza. They have stayed silent on their social media. They don't advocate one way or another. Or it's been the other kind of thing where, like, after October 7th happened, they, spoke up in support of Israel, and then they got a lot of backlash, and then you haven't heard anything from them again. It's somewhere like on that spectrum when it comes to like pop culture, celebrity, public opinion. And so therefore, the anti-Israel sentiment from the American public that is being expressed on social media and used as means to boycott your movie is not a result of a singular Rachel Zegler tweet that happened to be pro-Palestine, right? That sentiment had to come from somewhere else. So for Disney to say that she is the reason why the movie is getting all of this backlash, for Jonah Platt to go on Instagram and say that, she's catering to her own immature personal desires, which is what? Speaking up against war crimes and advocating for innocent people, that's what you're gonna call immature? But to put the singular blame of like, oh, our movie is getting boycotted because Rachel Zegler tweeted "Free Palestine" is absolutely asinine to me. That sentiment was already there, and it had to come from somewhere, but for some reason, anytime you ask any of these like political officials or like, I don't know, folks who are pro-Israel in these media spaces, they act like they don't understand. They're like, I don't know where this is coming from. I don't know why, Rachel Zegler would do this. Why would Rachel Zegler do this? And it's like, hello? Like, and I will say that sometimes when it comes to the celebrity piece of this in particular, like, I do think people have a tendency to jump on, hate trains if something is not 100% articulated in the right way. I do agree with that. And that's why I think a lot of celebrities are staying silent about stuff like this, because they just don't want to deal with, like, the backlash, which makes Rachel Zegler's statement all the more commendable to be. If anything, I'm just happy to see that for the first time in several years, Rachel Zegler is seeing an outpouring of support online. It's frustrating that it took this long, but I really think it takes a clear industry smear attempt for people to understand how all of this stuff works. For example, Melissa Barrera, who was fired from Scream for her outspoken stance on Palestine, pointed out on Instagram that a lot of these articles that were written in Variety about her and meant to smear her character were also written by the same author, Tatianna Siegel. And you guys know that I, as a former journalist, am always trying to give the benefit of the doubt to other journalists. However, whether you're a journalist or an influencer or a content creator or whatever, you're a person who disseminates information on the internet through published means, you do have a responsibility and you are not exempt from accountability. And as someone who's been covering this story from the beginning, I can tell how much of this article has been framed in a way that pins the entire box office failure on Rachel Zegler, when in reality, it's just the fact that Disney can't come up with anything original anymore. All of these live action remakes look like shit. They as a company literally put themselves in the center of a culture war crossfire in their pursuit of not developing anything original. And they're completely ignoring the fact that a lot of people have been boycotting this film because Gal Gadot is in it. Independent of anything that Rachel Zegler said, Disney was going to have this problem anyway. Rachel Zegler is so clearly not the box office poison that they're making her out to be. She was the victim of some right-wing culture war nonsense, which she was undoubtedly going to be because that's what happens to every woman of color who stars in a Disney property. But also, we have another franchise to directly compare this to because she was in a Hunger Games prequel film a year or so ago, and that movie made a shit ton of money. And this is not to say that you can't dislike the movie, or even that you can't critique aspects of Rachel's performance that you might not like. I hate these remakes, and I think Disney should stop making them, but not for like the dumb culture war everything is woke and gay now reason, which because of who owns our algorithms is the dominant narrative that is drowning out any actual valid media criticism that is currently taking place in online spaces. It's exhausting. I'm exhausted, but you'd think that these mega media conglomerates would take the correct lessons from it and either give vocal or monetary support to their actors of color who are being put in this impossible position, or just stop race swapping characters altogether, because this has happened enough times that they know the backlash will be inevitable, and that the majority of people giving year-round coverage to your series online will just be hate watchers who are trying to perpetuate the right-wing grift. Surely this is not worth the publicity that you're so desperate to get in the oversaturated streaming slop era, where reinventing IP in a controversial way is prioritized over original content. God damn it. So yeah, that's my takeaway here. I can't imagine, like, you know, if I'm Rachel Zegler having my dream come true of like being a Disney princess and then a billion-dollar company like leaving you out to dry in the name of culture war nonsense. It sucks, and it's like a little heartbreaking and terrible, and if anything, I hope this video just like provided enough context and analysis and hopefully makes you think about the way the media apparatus works. So thank you so much, you guys. A reminder to check out the Womanizer link down below to start shopping for yourself. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time.